21st century carries the burden of the 20th century. The 20th century's imperialism continues today. Whatever we have in forms of different forms in 20th century is today a completely digital form. That also goes with a very easy word that's used today these days. They call it digital colonialism. I would say that's a subverted expression of what is really happening today. It is imperialism in plain eyes that we see today. And there are 5 truths that I see which are true for the 21st century, in the sense that they control our lives like anything, like the most powerful thing that is there above us. In 20th century, again, going back there are 2 English gentlemen, one Mr. Aldous Huxley and Mr. George Orwell. They both had their great books written. One is The Brave New World. The second book is George Orwell's 1984. Very popular books. Both these books identify that the future would be something very different. All the subjects, or rather all the people, will be the subjects of power, is what everybody imagined. Both of them imagined, and that was a huge part of our discourse across movements, across the globe, all the late 20th century. But if you see that today, both of them were different in their own way, in projecting what the future will be. George Orwell expected the world where it will be controlled by a power that will look at people going in straight lines with a whip control always. Whereas the Brave New World of Aldous Huxley told the world will be completely controlled by an authoritarian regime, but here the people will be participating in it in a voluntary fashion. There is no requirement of whip. They felt technology will be much more advanced, and this advanced technology will be able to control everything, and people will follow rules with complete acceptance and subjugation. And if you see today in the 21st century, Aldous Huxley was right when you look at when you compare him with George Orwell. Today, each and every person, even right now, as we are listening to this session, and as I'm taking this session, we see so many people already busy or plugged in into the system looking at their cell phones. So this is how people, or rather, this is how the whole world is getting controlled. What you see, what you listen, what you talk, everything is directed by algorithms which are not controlled by people. It is not the machine, rather it is not the man who commands the machine, but it is the machine that is commanding the man. And we need to ensure that the man rages against the machine. How and why? Let's look at a little more deeply. The first points are, let's rather first look at all the 5 points. Starting here, data exploitation is modern day imperialism. Get it right. We know we use Google, we use Facebook, we use all the big monopoly social media, softwares, your operating systems are controlled by very few organizations which are more powerful than many central governments. They control not only the data, but they also control our lives more than we can imagine. They can literally tell you what your next step should be in your life. They even not only control that, but they can dictate that to you. How many of you would know what will be your next 5 years? If there are organizations who can say anything about that, it is these top 6 to 7 organizations which can literally tell this is how the next 5 years or 6 years is going to be, and this is how I'm going to control everything around me. And that is exactly happening today. Next one. And our dependence on technology. Technology dependence is not wrong, but humans' dependence on technology has gone to a stage, as we just discussed. Technology is dictating the human life as such, a human essence as such. And this way, the colonial subjugation, whatever that was there until 20th century, or which started before that, has gone to a place today where anything that we do, any job that we take, or any loan that we take up, all that money ultimately goes to one particular place. And that's how you see this colonial subjugation just continuing day by day. And digital markets, as many people see, today digital markets have opened gates for people from social and economic backwardness have a good opportunity to progress. but the reality is far away from that. It is already people in those local economies who have some kind of an access to money, to capital, to resources, are the ones who are accelerating in terms of ascent compared to the actual poor and actual disadvantaged. And digital labor is precarious labor. Do not assume that once you are part of a digital economy, you have a job for life. This is not 20th century. There is a job today, and the same job will not be there tomorrow, and the next or the day after that, you can still can't be in the same job. If 8 hours of your work is, if your job is doing some work, you need to spend another 8 hours to search for a new job. So that's the life today, that's the order. And global tech standards are completely erasing the local economies, which we'll see much more deeply. Now, next slide, please. These are the 5 truths of imperialism in the 21st century. The biggest problem here is AI comes into this kind of an arrangement. People believe AI can be a liberator here, but unfortunately, AI is accelerating all these 5 truths. It is not just accelerating, it is the core catalyst of everything that's happening. Now let's look at all this. Let's go back. Go to the slide 2. Yeah. Look at data exploitation in the context of AI. It is no more just exploitation, but the data that is collected from the people gets enriched further with the algorithms that are there. You book your phone, you book your Uber or Ola using your phones. The price of your travel is decided by the phone that you use. An iOS person's charge on a particular this thing is not the same thing that somebody who uses Android has. It also depends upon your battery. If you have hardly 3% left, your cost is going to be definitely higher than the person who has more battery. So we are being pushed onto the edge. The more you are on edge, the more will be the exploitation. And imagine the case of gender sensitivity also here. A girl who is about to leave the office, going to the home with a low battery, and imagine the search that the algorithm will push. It is not just the data that is being taken, the data is being utilized in an algorithmic fashion against us. And that's how AI has completely changed the scenario of the already existing digital imperialism that we see. We just wrote the second slide, I'm sorry. Next. And tech dependence perpetuates colonial subjugation in the fashion that we already know how AI is biased. Take your WhatsApp, look at, we have already seen that example yesterday. You type a question, what is the suitable career for Jane? Is it a nurse or a doctor? Your WhatsApp meta responds saying that Jane should be a nurse. That's the kind of bias. And it's almost like the female cannot dream of becoming a doctor. That's the kind of bias these big algorithms already have. Imagine it is the same algorithms which are trained on the historical data of all the courts in US or in India, wherever it is. If the same thing is presented in US courts today, an algorithm will automatically convict a black American as a convict because the history says so. Unfortunately, we know how many people were innocently put behind the bars. So that is what we are fighting for. When we say tech dependence perpetuates colonial subjugation, at an algorithm level, the bias is extraordinary, and already disadvantaged people will continue to be in disadvantage, and the bias will be accelerated. The third, digital markets reinforce economic inequalities, and these economic inequalities in general, people who have access to AI will obviously be able to perform better. More importantly, the monopolies. Today, big corporate companies or your big IT companies, instead of hiring 3 software developers, it is very easy for them today to take one license of one software developer with 2 Copilot licenses, which is much more cheaper, giving the same productivity. And that's what we are looking at. This is already happening. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. This has already accelerated. This is on the ground. And already the dependence on manual labor, AI is looking at it and removing the dependency on manual labor. And how the market is going to turn up, I can easily leave that to your imagination. The fifth point, the tech standards. Let it be UPI, which say, for example, the payment models, which are very popular in India, but the same things are not necessarily happening at a global level. Our tech standards, which needs to be, which are quite popular for UPI, you cannot apply the same thing to make your international payments. The dependence on Visa, MasterCard is not allowing the local entrepreneurs in India to reach to a global market. And that's another very big thing, which AI also, and more importantly, all the policies which needs to adhere to AI standards that are internationally developed by very big monopoly corporations might find it very, the people here in India might find it very difficult to adhere to that. Even forget about the general AI, even look at the places like 5G and 4G. If 5G technology can hardly cover 1 kilometer of distance with 4 times the cost. Compare that with 4G, which covers 10 kilometers of distance at a cost which is just one-fourth of the cost of 5G. And now 5G is continuously pushed because you are expected to adhere to the global norms. In this pursuit of global norms, we are leaving many people away from connectivity. You go to, if there are people who have experienced internet in the rural areas, it's really pathetic today compared 10 years back. When 3G was new, villages that are there, of course in the rural areas, the internet was much more better than what you see today. We need to, I don't say revolt against all this, but we as people can construct really progressive alternatives. Community networks are already proving to be one such great alternative. Community networks which are powered by servers like Freedom Box can really not only save people from data exploitation, but also enable the local economy itself. Freedom Box comes up with models like, features like encryption. It comes like features of federation. It is accessible and it is net neutral. Monopoly corporations can no more take the control of internet. It becomes decentralized and it is in the hands of the people. And Freedom Box, when put up along with your AI, large language model taken up in an open model, and train those artificial intelligence, but the dependent large language models with the local data, and have those servers attached to these community networks, which is with the Freedom Box server, then we are not only creating a global alternative, rather a decentralized global alternative for the dependence on AI, but we are creating a local economy there itself, where all these algorithms are trained by local data by local people. And that is how we see an AI that is being developed by the people, for the people, and of the people. And let us look at those examples and how it can work. Next. So once you have Freedom Box attached with a local AI server, once the infrastructure is decentralized, all those problems that we have of bias, once you decentralize the infrastructure and train it with data that is there locally, you are already beating the global bias that is coming up with your ChatGPT or other Gemini or any big cloud-based AI models. The second one. Preserving cultural identity. We know when we are looking at accessing data or rather accessing knowledge through your ChatGPT or Gemini AI, local identity is always endangered in the sense that it not necessarily understands. By default, a white male is the ideal human being according to this algorithms. And we know 98% of people do not belong to that particular identity. It is in our hands not only to build those systems, but to train those systems continuously again and again. And all your culture that is there, all that baggage and burden of 20th century that is there, it will just continue in this global SaaS models. Because the global SaaS models point here is to sell you something, but not make you productive. It is the people's responsibility, it is our responsibility to take that infrastructure into our hands, build our own systems, and make them work for us, but not we work for somebody else. And such models, when you have, because you yourself can build your own local economy based on the systems that are built there. People who are the local entrepreneurs who are already there will always have an extraordinary advantage in selling something or putting their own product out. As you know, net neutrality, which is a big question 10 years back, it still continues to be a question. When solutions like Starlink and others are trying to come to India, the first point that we need to understand here is, are we really ready for a world where which website needs to be accessed is not decided by a regulatory body, is not decided by a person, by the people, but is decided by a single person. If it becomes the prerogative of a single person, and you call that the default mode of internet tomorrow, what would happen to the local markets? So it is for us to bring our network back into our control. And that's how data sovereignty is also measured. In these local models of building AI, your data is with you, data is living in your own village, which on your request, on will, can be shared with people outside your village. And that's how data sovereignty is obviously maintained, and that can be saved. What data needs to go in, what kind of an algorithms do you want, and what should the algorithm really work for? What is the purpose of that algorithm that is being put inside the village can be decided by the people. Do not underestimate the understanding power of the people. The big monopoly corporations come up with a narrative saying that people do not know what they want. In your startup classes, that is one of those things that they tell you. It is, you need to direct the market. People do not know what they want, so you try to make something and sell it and push it into their throat is what they tell you. But that's not how it works. That's not the kind of world that 21st century has to be. With the amount of technology that we have today, more that kind of technology comes forward, the more subjugation happens to the people. So we don't want that to happen. For that to happen, a community network model AI is an extraordinary alternative for us to build together, for us to make it together and distribute it together. So that principle is something that we need to work towards. And all the elite gentlemen who are there here, this is an extraordinary opportunity for us. In the next 10 years, I'm not sure we will still be talking about this. Because next 10 years, all this will already is already taken over by monopolies. Monopolies still don't control the networks at the local level. We still have people who can do that today. But tomorrow, when the algorithm takes care of the state itself, takes care of the judgments, takes care of bureaucracy, it's already taking care of the elections. I don't have to talk about that. So we know what kind of world that will be in the next 10 years. In the next decade is in our hands. Next decade should be the decade of community networks and community AI. That's where an AI for the people, by the people, and of the people is what is in our hands. We need to construct and take it forward. Thank you very much.